All right, UFC 301. I put a lot of time into the research for these predictions, so here we go. Starting with Alessandro Costa and Kevin Borjas. So the last fight that Costa fought was with Erceg, which was quite a challenge. I think Alessandro Costa probably learned a lot from that fight. You know, Steve Erceg is super focused. He always gives it his all. And he's also way faster than Kevin Borjas is. I think. Yeah, I just don't think this is an even matchup. I think Alessandro Costa is going to go in there, notice how slow Kevin Borjas is. He could maybe decide to take us to the ground. I don't know. Yeah, I think I have a sense for some reason that Kevin Borjas might want to, like, that they both might want to take this to the ground. Because of the way Kevin Borjas is built, he'll be forced into a grapple. Yeah, I don't know. Regardless of how it'll end, I definitely think Alessandro Costa's got this one. Alright. Moving on to the next one. Okay, next one is Ismael Bonfim versus Vinc Pichel. This is also a super obvious one. Ismael Bonfim is going to win this one. Vitor Petrino is old. He's 41. 41. And Bonfim is 28. I think this is going to be Tim Means versus Uros Medic. Jim Miller versus Bobby Green, part 3. Oh yeah, last fight that Ismael had was with Benoit Saint-Denis. So I'm sure he came out of that fight learning a lot more about what good grappling is, like, you know, that intense fighters like Benoit Saint-Denis exist out there. So I think going against Vinc Pichel will not be much of a challenge for him. So I think he's gonna win this one by KO, maybe points. Sometimes fights go, you know, to decision, especially if Vinc Pichel chooses to be careful. Yeah. Also, Vince is really unstable on his feet. Like, I've noticed he looks pretty awkward in fights. You know, just another thing. So yeah. Bonfim by KO, maybe points. Alright, next up we've got Dione Barbosa versus Ernesto Kareckaite. Ernesto is a boxer, and Barbosa is a grappler. But also, I feel like Ernesto is extremely breakable. Yeah, you know, in general, Barbosa is more of a grappler, and she's more of a fighter. So, I think this is probably going to go to Barbosa, although, like, there is a chance, because I think Ernesta's, I believe she's a little taller and a little longer and has a little bit more of a reach advantage. She might end up tagging her up throughout the fight. Yeah, but also I feel like once Barbosa takes Ernesta down to the ground, I don't know if she'll be able to get back up. So I'm gonna go Barbosa by points. I don't know. Not one of my most confident picks on this card. I'm avoiding this fight personally, but yeah. All right, moving on to the next fight: Mauricio Ruffy versus Jaime Mullarkey. So I think Mauricio is gonna win by KO or points. So first thing is I noticed that Mauricio has this really, like, straight back posture when he fights, like a good, I call it the good student posture, but I've noticed that's a really favorable trait in these fights. I don't know why. I noticed that the straighter someone's back is, the more clear they are in the fight, if that makes sense. So that's one thing he's got going for him. Second of all, Jaime Mullarkey, like, fights with fear. He doesn't really do anything. I've noticed in his past few fights, he takes mostly a defensive stance and doesn't really do anything. Jaime Mullarkey is also pretty slow. You know, I don't see a lot going for him here in this fight. Anyhow, so Mauricio Ruffy by KO or points. Probably KO, unless Mullarkey decides to be super careful, but I don't know. I'm pretty confident about this one. Alright, moving on. Joaquim Silva versus Drakkar Klose. I think this is going to be a close fight. Haha. Okay. Okay, no, seriously. I think Klose is going to win. I think he's more aggressive. He's also more careful. I've noticed that Silva plays more of a defensive, like he takes a more of a defensive stance in his fights, and then like pounces when he sees an opening. I don't think that Klose is going to give him those openings, and yeah, I think what's going to happen here is Klose is going to stack up points while Silva stays on defense, you know. So this could be finished by Klose via points, but it's also possible, I think, that if Drakkar Klose sees that Silva isn't doing much and is remaining on defense, waiting for an opening, I think he might just go in and get a KO. So, you know. Yeah. Alright, moving on. Gene Silva versus William Gomis. So, a lot of people think that Gene Silva's gonna win because he's super strong and he's got, like, really great knockout power. But I think, here's the thing. Gomis has a reach advantage. I also don't think that he's gonna allow Silva to get too close. William Gomis is also the kind of fighter that hunts his opponent down in the octagon, and I've noticed that Silva doesn't really do well against these types of opponents. Yeah, and so I'm gonna go for William Gomis for the finish. Based on the previous fights that I've seen, I think this is the most likely situation. I think this is the most likely outcome. Alright, moving on to the next fight, which is Elves Brener versus Myktybek Orolbai. So, I think Orolbai will win by submission. If he does win, it's going to be by submission, probably. I watched the previous fight that Orolbai fought with Uros Medic, and he made that fight look super easy. We saw Uros Medic in previous last week's fight. He's a pretty good fighter. So the thing is Elves Brener isn't as predictable, I think, as Orolbai is. So I think there's a chance he might win by freak accident, if anything. Like, you know, I don't think he's got a sure technique, to be honest, based on everything that I've seen from him. But I still think that Orolbai is a little more careful, and he's a little bit of a smarter fighter, which I think is going to allow him to come out on top on this one. But I'm also not too sure about this one. Like, I feel like Orolbai will win, but this isn't my most certain bet. So, yeah, I don't know. Not the strongest pick on this card. Okay, moving on to the next fight. Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Iasmin Lucindo. I think Iasmin Lucindo is going to win. She's going to get the finish. Yeah, I watched a previous fight with Karolina that Karolina fought with Andrade, where she just got completely destroyed. And I think that this is kind of going to be a similar situation with Iasmin. Iasmin is so much hungrier and so much stronger, and she fights like a man. Karolina does not fight like a man. So I just, I feel like Iasmin's going to win this one. I think she's got this one. think she's gonna get the finish. Okay, moving on to the next one. Joanderson Brito versus Jack Shore. I think Joanderson Brito is gonna get the finish. He's a better grappler, and he's more solid on the feet, and he's got better fight IQ, and he's faster. So I think he's probably gonna get a KO. Yeah, I think he's probably gonna get the KO. Alright, next fight is with Paul Craig and Caio Bravo. So I think Caio Bravo is gonna win. Paul Craig just doesn't do anything. I've watched his previous fights back, and he just doesn't do anything. So it's possible that he gets KO'd, but it's also possible that the moment Caio gets him to the ground, he submits him also. Like, I have such low confidence in Paul Craig right now. So, you know what, though? He might defend on the ground. I just don't see him doing anything offensive. Like, I don't see him getting a KO at all. I also don't think he's gonna get any takedowns. Like, I think he's gonna find himself in takedowns and maybe, like, maneuver himself out of there, but, you know, I think Caio's got this one. Also, this is a fight that's gonna be going on in Brazil, and I'm pretty sure that, like, most of the fighters on this card are Brazilian, and I think that, you know, that might give them some kind of hometown advantage. So, anyhow, moving on to the main card. Michel Pereira versus Igor Potieria. I think Michel Pereira is going to win by KO or points. I was watching his previous fights, and I just noticed how long he was. Like, how long his limbs were specifically compared to his body, which allows him to create such a huge distance between him and his opponent. That allows him to, I don't know, like, he hits hard. I've noticed that. He's a lot more aggressive, a lot more intimidating, and I don't know, the last few fights I watched with Igor weren't that impressive or inspiring, really. I think he's gonna be on defense the whole time. Yeah, I don't see this going well for Igor, to be honest. Yeah, so Michel Pereira by KO. I think that's the most likely option, by KO. Maybe points. He's definitely gonna win by points, regardless. But yeah, I think he's gonna get the finish. Okay, moving on. Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino. So I think Vitor Petrino is going to get a KO or a win by points. Maybe by points, actually. Actually, I think it's a 50-50 chance of KO and points. But Vitor is a lot more creative in fights, I've noticed. He's a better grappler. Anthony Smith just isn't on it the same way that Vitor Petrino is. And he kind of just hangs around waiting for opportunity, and he doesn't seize the day. And so, you know, I think Vitor Petrino is going to seize the day in this one and win by KO or points. It's like, I feel like he's going to get the KO if Anthony Smith allows him to get a KO. Otherwise, he's going to win by points. Alright, moving on to the next fight. Jonathan Martinez versus Jose Aldo. This is the co-main event. And this is another fight that I'm super conflicted about. I want to say Jonathan Martinez by KO or points, just because I think there's a higher chance of a freak accident happening in this matchup. And Jose Aldo kind of is like coming out of retirement. I think this is also his last fight. The last fight on his contract. But also I heard that he's been doing a lot of boxing. So his boxing might be better than Jonathan Martinez's. However, that being said, I think that Jose Aldo's predictability might not be so favorsome in this fight. I think that, I don't know, like, Jonathan Martinez is pretty durable, and he has a way of, like, managing to not get completely fucked up in the fights, so this is a tough pick for me. I'm leaning towards Jonathan Martinez, but I also wouldn't bet on this one. Yeah. Alright, moving on. The main event, Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. I'm going to go for Steve Erceg for the finish. I think that he's so much more focused than most fighters, Pantoja included. He really gives the fights like 110%, where I don't see a lot of fighters do that so much. And also, like, Steve Erceg is the kid in school who got bullied. And he still is. People are underestimating him because they're like, oh, well, look at him. Look at this guy. Like, who is he going to beat? But, like, you know, he's surprised me more than once. Like, I remember betting against him when he fought. Who did he fight? Oh, Alessandro Costa. Yeah, I remember being like, oh yeah, Costa's gonna win for sure, and then Steve Erceg just came in there and showed everyone that he's really fucking good. So I think that's what's gonna happen here again. Steve Erceg is so good. I think he's so used to people underestimating him because people have been underestimating him his whole life, and I think he's really determined. Also, like, I think this is his first main event, and I think I watched an interview with him where he was describing how shocked he was when he found out that he was being considered for the main event. And, you know, I don't think he's gonna... I think if he normally gives fights 110%, he's gonna come in here giving it 120, and he's gonna get that finish against Pantoja. I just think he's hungrier and more focused and just a better fighter overall. So yeah, that's my decision on that. And also, I wanted to go over my super sure picks. I'm gonna go in order of like my super sure picks, the like kind of sure picks, and then the picks that I'm like not really feeling that much. So starting off with the really sure picks, I'll go with Alessandro Costa, Ismael Bonfim, Mauricio Ruffy, and Joanderson Brito. Those are the 4 super sure picks. Like, I feel like those 4 will definitely win. The next pick that is like between super sure and like kind of sure is Miguel Pereira. And then for the I'm pretty sure, but I'm not super certain. We've got Drakkar, Klose, Iasmin, Lucindo, Caio Borrallo, and Vitor Petrino. And also Steve Erceg. So those 5, I'm pretty sure will win, but not certain. And the ones that I just don't know about are Jonathan Martinez versus Jose Aldo. Like, that could really go either way. And also Elves Brener versus Myktybek Orolbai. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen there. And also Dione Barbosa versus Ermesta Kareckaite. Like, yeah, I just those are the 3 I would kind of avoid on this card. But yeah, I'm excited. I think this will be. I think a lot of the picks on this card are pretty sure picks. Yeah. Anyhow, I wanted to leave this card off, letting you guys know what I'm picking this week, or who I'm picking this week. And yeah, that's all. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a successful week, and see you next week or on the recap that I make for after UFC 301, letting you guys know my thoughts on how everything went. See you.